So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited about this series. You're actually the first person that will air. We love that. We love a baddie in tech. And I'm so excited that it's you because, we'll get into, but for those who don't know, this is Allie, who is the founder of Baddies in Tech, an amazing organization that is really helping to empower women in tech, help provide resources, and just so many amazing things. And Allie is just a force to be reckoned with it. Like ever since I've joined Baddies in Tech as a founding member, ever since like just getting to know Allie, she's such a sweetheart, and I'm really just so inspired by all that she does. Like we have very similar missions in wanting to help um, women who don't have as much opportunity to get into tech, and just providing more space for those of us, women, Black women, women of color, all of us, to be able to not just get into tech, but to thrive while we're there as well. And I love that. And yeah, so Allie, I've talked enough. Go ahead and introduce yourself and, everything that you do.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Nicole, for having me. I'm really excited about this because I usually don't do things like this. And, like you were saying, we've known each other a while, we've talked a while. So, like, I like this. I like this environment. So, thank you. Um, I'm Allie. I'm the founder of Baddies in Tech. Like Nicole said, our mission is to help Black and Brown women get into tech, but not only that, to thrive while they're there and to stay in the tech industry because people always talk about the pipeline problem, and there is not a pipeline problem in that we're not in it. We are in the pipeline, and we are in the industry, and baddies are super enthusiastic, and we've seen that time and time again in the events that we've put on. Like baddies are here to stay. Like we contribute so many things to the tech industry. We're here to learn, and we do really good work. So it's not the problem of, there aren't diverse, there isn't diverse talent in the tech industry. It's more so that the pipeline itself is very leaky, right? Due to all, institutionalized racism, microaggressions, all the things that we face in the industry, not like being overlooked for promotions. We tend to, get frustrated and leave the industry. And there's like a statistic that says, that I think it's like half of I think Black and Brown women in tech will leave the industry by the age of 30. And that's because of all these compounding effects, right? So Baddies in Tech was created to curb that problem. And it started from it started not as a business or as like really anything bigger than just like an Instagram page. It was when I can get into that, but that's the gist of me. So I right now am a full-time tech entrepreneur, and I have been doing this for about a year and a half, less than a year and a half full time. But I started my tech journey in, customer success. So I transitioned into tech from a non-tech background. And so a lot of what Baddies in Tech does is try to encourage people who aren't, from a traditional, computer science background to get into tech, leveraging their skills and their previous transferable experience. So yeah.
I love that. And that's a big reason why I'm so inspired and why I love your story, particularly because I think a lot of people think that when you are getting into tech, it's doing things like I did, like just jumping into coding and stuff like that. And when I got into tech, I was doing a lot of that, like leveraging the skills that I had that weren't technical.
Okay.
And your story is that you got into tech, you weren't doing any coding. You still don't code, do you? Right. You don't have to be in tech and have to learn how to code when you do that. So, will you talk a little bit more about like how you made that switch into tech, what that was like for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I studied biology in school, so it was like nothing to do with tech, also nothing to do with business or entrepreneurship. So I have like zero background in anything that I do now. But I learned about tech and kind of like got interested in tech during my senior year. So I was taking a genomics course, and it was we were talking about the applications of CRISPR technology in healthcare and in medicine. And I was going to go to school, grad school or like medical school, right? But then I saw like, oh, okay, this is like another way that, I could, you know, make a difference in the medical industry. So that was, when that spark went off for me. And I was like, okay, let me look into, this space of like health tech. So it was really just, knowing that I didn't really know anything about the tech industry. This was kind of my aha moment. And I was like, okay, let me look into that. And from my sophomore year to my senior year, I was working at a medical or an emergency department. And I was working on EMR technology, which is like the software that doctors use to record patients, like patient records and patient visits and stuff like that. So that was like my software experience because, doctors are very like non-technical. So they would hire people to follow them around and like work this software for them. So that's what I did in college. So knowing that, that software and like tech companies build that software, I was like, okay, like why don't I look to, get into a health tech or health software company and see if I can like, navigate my way in that space. Cause it was, close to graduation. I was like, oh, I actually don't want to go to med school. What am I going to do? I don't want to move back home. So like, let me do something here. So I started looking for, work in that space. And I ended up finding a job at a health tech startup in Durham, North Carolina. I went to Syracuse, so I was in New York. So after graduation, I ended up moving to North Carolina for this job. And it was essentially digitizing the same process that I was doing in the emergency department. So doctors completing their EMR software notes, but without a person in the room. So this startup was building hardware and software that was going to help them do that with AI versus like a human being like I was doing in the emergency department. So yeah, I came on as a customer implementation specialist. And what I would do was travel like all across America, and I would train the doctors on the technology. I would train them on the hardware and the software that allowed them to, do their notes. And yeah, that was like really, really fun. So it was a health tech startup. It was just acquired by a larger company. So they were transitioning from like a startup kind of structure to a more corporate structure. I was their first hire after they were acquired. So I was like the only Black person, the only Black woman. It was my first, professional environment, corporate environment. And yeah, and my manager was like, I hope she's not watching this, but I love her as a person, but she was like a first time manager. So it was hard to like find mentorship or like career growth from her. Yeah, so that was like a difficult environment for me. It was like, the typical effects that we feel as like onlys and like only Black person or only Black woman in that space. And yeah, that was like super difficult. So I kind of turned towards the internet to find like other younger Black women who were in tech and who were like, new to their careers or who were, like professional. And I was like seeing a lot of people on Instagram. So I started connecting on Instagram. I was seeing a lot of, like, because Instagram is like a image, platform. So I was like, oh yeah, there's some baddies who are in tech. And yeah, so then, but like, it didn't really click. I was just like, oh, okay, there's like Black women in tech. There's beautiful Black women in tech. There's fierce Black women in tech. So I was connecting with these people. And then on one of my trips, it wasn't my Beverly Hills trip. No, I went to Connecticut. But if you are like an OG Baddies in Tech follower, you would remember the Beverly Hills trip because I like filmed it and I was like, oh, this is what I do. I don't know. Probably somebody watching this would remember, but yeah. Yeah, so I went to Connecticut on a one of my work trips. And it was like right after my 22nd birthday. I had this like long wig with bangs. Like I was still in my birthday wig. And yeah, and I think like the doctor was doing really well. So I like left. went to take a mirror pic, and then like it just dropped in my head, like hashtag Baddies In Tech. So I used it, and I clicked the hashtag. I realized like no one had ever used that before. And then I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, this is really catchy. And I just decided to start an Instagram page to kind of connect all those things that I just mentioned. And I thought it would be easy because I was like, I don't know why I thought it would be easy, but
Yeah.
I thought that. So I just started. I got like a logo off of Fiverr, and I just started, and here we are like 2 years later. Because after I started, I realized that this was getting bigger than I expected, and like people were actually like coming to us looking for something, like versus, oh, here's just an Instagram page. It was like, oh, do you know about this or do you know about that? And I'm like, oh, actually I'm new too, so not really. But I then decided to move to Ghana for a tech entrepreneurship program where I learned everything I know about the tech industry and building a tech business. And that has translated to what I do now with Baddies In Tech, and just taking it from what it was at the start as a community to what it is now as a tech startup, a community tech startup. So yeah.
I love that. It's so much, like, I feel like there's a lot of similarities between our stories, and that's probably why like there's still such a connection between us, like just finding our way. And it just so happened to be tech, and then just like stumbling into like a larger purpose and being able to help other people, even though like we're still figuring it out ourselves. So do you have connections in Ghana? I never asked you this, but are you connected in Ghana? Do you have family?
Yeah, I'm actually in my like family's house right now. I'm actually Ghanaian, so I was born in Ghana. I left when I was 6, moved to the States, and then I've been back like maybe 2, 3 times, like in between. But this was like when I moved in 2019, August was like my first real adult experience in Ghana. So yeah, like I had like friends from like first grade, but not really like deep connections outside of my family. But it's been really good because I connected with like the MEST community in Ghana, which is like one of the big startup incubators in Ghana. So there's a big startup community, and then I've connected with people outside of that as well. But yeah, it's my home, so I wanted to come back to it.
That's so great. I was so jealous. I think was it 2019 when everyone like went back.
Well, yeah, your return.
I was like, dang, I wish I would have been doing it earlier. I wanted to go. I've always wanted to go to Ghana. I had so many Ghanaian friends in college.
Oh, really?
They introduced me to, jollof rice and all of the things about the culture. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I don't like being African American, being born here. I don't really know like, what parts family are from, and we've never done like a genetic test, I don't believe. So it's like I'm just going to attach myself to this culture because I love it so much, and I love all my friends.
You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome to our culture. Yeah, Techies are really friendly. Like if you come, like you'll feel super at home. Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna make it a point to visit, and now I have people to visit when I
you can come stay at my house. You can come stay at my house, girl.
So was there a specific part in your journey that said like, I know you said like you kind of used it felt catchy and the people were coming to you. Are there like, did you have challenges along your journey that said, okay, this is why we're going to make Baddies In Tech what it is? Like, is there anything that influenced that? Or do you think it was more what people were asking for that you kind of,
No, I think it was a combination of both. I mean, like I said, the whole, even trying to connect with other Black women in tech at the beginning of my journey was because I was being disrespected at my job as like, and the thing, I think like it was also because I was like the youngest person there. But yeah, like as a Black woman, as a young Black woman, as the only Black woman, it was just, there were just a lot of microaggressions, right? I saw a tweet the other day where she was like, I hate going into work after like doing your hair, like changing your hair.
How many times has that happened to you? Because that has happened so many times. I would have so much anxiety about changing my hair.
Right. Like going into high school for the first time or something, because people will roast you, not even roast you, but like, I mean, they might be roasting you in their head, but they'll ask so many questions and it's just like, stop. And then they'll try to touch you. But that's like trivial. There was a time where my boss like reprimanded me in front of a client, like yelled at me in front of a client for something that she had done even worse. Like, I don't know. Okay, so I was like having shoulder issues and we were working with an orthopedic doctor. And at like it was a good visit. We finished everything. We were about to leave. And at the end, I was like, oh, like I've been having this pain. Like, should I go get it checked out? And then the doctor just started, he's like, lay here, let me check it out. Like, I didn't ask for this. Like, I was just like, oh, should I go get it checked out? Is this something I should get looked at? And, he started doing all this. And then I think like the manager of like the facility manager came in and like saw. And then, so I think she said something to my boss, and then my boss, like, instead of like telling her, I'll talk to her later, like, you shouldn't do that or something, she like yelled at me in front of her to make it seem like, oh yeah, I've disciplined her or something. And then, fast forward, I asked, I think I told one of my coworkers about it, and she was like, oh, that's really funny that she did that, because I've known my boss to like get an x-ray at like one of the facilities. Like, she's gotten a whole ass x-ray. And she was yelling at me for asking a question. Like, and she was there when it happened. Like, I asked the question and he like was like, oh, let me check it out for you. So I'm like, so there was just like different microaggressions that compounded, and I was like, nah. So I mean, experiencing that was like kind of like, my inspiration for trying to connect with Black women in tech, and then noticing that there wasn't a unifying space for that. Yeah, and then other things like, me being new to tech, like all this jargon, right? Like, and that's why we do the What the Tech post.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what is this? Like, before I came to MESS, I didn't know what front end development was. I didn't know what back end development was. I just knew that, I'm working in a tech startup. There's the customer implementation, right? The development team builds the code, they ship it, and then I go and train the doctors to use the software, the resulting software, right? Like, I didn't know about all the different facets that go into building software and like, selling software. So yeah, there's just like, right, DevOps and front end and React and framework and all these different things. And like, I think that if any, like, for me, it was like, okay, like anyone who's new to this industry is gonna have these same questions, right? And even the fact that, right, there's certain ones that are talked about a lot now, but then there's like this whole other array of careers and like different technologies that people could work on that they don't know about, and that could actually really fit, their personality type and what they want to work on and like what they love, and they can make a lot of money in it. So it's just the whole haziness and like, I guess, gatekeeping of tech that I experienced that other people have also experienced and were coming to us asking for. So yeah, that's kind of like, and I've also done a lot of user research just since coming to MESS and learning how to build a startup. Like, talking to your users is like number one or number two thing that you do, right? So I've done a lot of user research on the Baddies in Tech community and just asking them what they need, what they're looking for, just surveying them. And that's really informed what we're building now and the platform that's launching at the end of February.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so as like this budding tech entrepreneur, like, tell us about what that's like, because I know it's a new experience for you and you're learning as you go. But when I tell you all, like, she handles it with so much grace and always looks and seems like she knows exactly what's going on and how everything is going. Like, I know she'll tell you that's not true, but the way she handles herself, like, in this entrepreneur space is so inspiring to me, and I'm sure like all of the other founding members, which is why like there's so many of us that like are so on board with it. how is that experience been for you? And like,
Yeah.
what are some challenges you face, I guess? Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, let's see. It has its highs and it has its lows, right? Like there's a lot of freedom that comes with it. But you have to be able to then self-motivate. You have to be able to set a schedule for yourself. You have to keep all of these things in track, like on track, right? And like documented. So I think like that's a big challenge is like, yeah, you get the freedom, but then you get a lot of responsibility. And then I think the other thing is having to learn everything. Like even if right, you're gonna delegate something to someone, you kind of have to know a little bit about it, right? You have to know like the basis or how you want to use X thing in your business, and then you can delegate it. Or you have to like you even have to document kind of the processes and the workflows, right? And I've done a lot of reworking of our Notion workspace, and I'm like everything's in my head, but no one knows what I'm talking about. Right. So I've had to, I think that's like really difficult, like having to try to get your vision on paper for other people to work on it with you because you can't do it by yourself. Like, and there's so many things to learn all the time. Like I'm learning something new, like every single day. And I think that, you know, there's some of it I'm good at, and then there's some of it that I'm not good at. But with the ones that I'm good at, I'm like, that also then confuses me in terms of, oh, what do I want to focus on as a person, like my personal career versus like as a tech entrepreneur, right? Like what skill what's my one skill? And that's like one thing that at Mess we were really taught was like, you know, as an entrepreneur, like you can work on so many different things, you can do so many things, but what is that one skill that you fall back on if like your whole business fails, right? So outside of like, you know, Baddies in Tech and being a tech entrepreneur, like what's my one skill that I want to hone? I don't like, that's like a big thing for me because, you know, I'm really good at branding. I'm really good at like, what is it called? Like content, right? I'm really good at WordPress development. So I could actually take WordPress development, like hone my skills, create a portfolio and make like hella money off of it, right? But because I'm like doing a little bit of WordPress development, a little bit of content, a little bit of branding, a little bit of communications, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, I don't have like the time to like hone that one skill, or maybe not the time, but I haven't like settled on that one skill that I want to be like, okay, let me focus on this as like my thing. Um, so that's like one thing that's difficult for me as well. But aside from that, it's like really, really fun because yeah, you are learning new things every day. You get to choose what you want to work on. And that's something that I've learned recently is that like you actually can choose what you want to work on. Because I think as an entrepreneur, because you're working on like you know, your hand is in so many different pots. It's like you feel obligated to do all these things. But I did a business audit recently with a wonderful woman named Allison. And, you know, it was mainly about just figuring out what you want to do in your business and what you don't want to do and what you have to do, what you don't have to do. And from there, I learned that, okay, yeah, I can actually choose the things that I like to do and then document processes and offboard and delegate to other people the other stuff I don't want to do. So yeah, I think that it's a lot of challenges in that like wow, like you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, but it's really fun because you get the freedom and you get to learn and yeah, you get to like choose how you want to do like dictate your week and your day. And I'm sure like you know because you freelance, right? So there's
Yeah.
a lot of similarities in that because you get to choose how you work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. And I think that's so important to emphasize is like, I think especially in our generation, like we're young people coming up and wanting to explore opportunities and
Right.
tech and things like that. Like, I think a lot of the allure of it is that freedom, you know. But you have to create that freedom because if
Mm-hmm.
you, like you said, like if you're taking on all the stuff that you don't like, and the stuff that you do like, the stuff that you are really great at, and the stuff that you're not so great at, like you've taken all of that on, that freedom's not going to be there the way you think it's
Exactly.
going to be there. And it's also like
stressed.
going to be as fun, you know?
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
gonna be
so
stressed.
stressful, so
Yeah,
stressful. And
yeah,
I've learned that a lot over the last year. Like you have to um, really check in a lot and do those audits and do those like
exactly.
self check-ins and really
It's
what
so important.
what do you really like to do and what do you want to focus on, and you have that choice, but you really have to give yourself the time to really figure it
Exactly.
out. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely have the choice, especially as an entrepreneur, but like you have to be intentional about like choosing and that's not just for entrepreneurs, that's for like anyone, building a career, pivoting careers, especially like don't just pivot into a career because you're like, oh yeah, there's hella money in it. And then, 5 months down learning, a certain skill, you're like, oh shit, I hate this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like really audit yourself and really know where you're going so that, it's like a solid move that you can stick with.
Yeah, that's really important. That's awesome. So, um, what advice do you have to someone who is thinking about um, making the switch into tech or even into tech entrepreneurship? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think like I just said it. My biggest advice is to really like sit down and get clear on who you are, your strengths and weaknesses, your personality type, and how you relate to working in teams
Mm-hmm.
or working by yourself. And kind of like also do your research in terms of like the different options in tech. Because I've been doing like what are they called, like consultations with a lot of like black women, yeah, black women mostly, um recently this past month. And people are just asking me like, oh, what are the options, XYZ. And like I'm happy to divulge that information like to the best of my knowledge. And for example, like one of my clients, for I was revamping her resume, she like got an interview, she's updating me, she got an interview for a position that, or like a title that she wasn't even thinking about before we started working together. And that was because I looked at her resume and I'm like, oh, with your experience, this tech position would be really would like really work, for you, and it wouldn't be like too far of a jump. Like you should try to, because then you can always jump to, something that's a closer jump for you and then move from there as you get more experience, right? So yeah, like that's my advice, is to first um, audit yourself and know like, where you're going, do your research on the industry and kind of like match those two things together, and also like take into account your past experience and your transferable skills like we mentioned earlier, because that's going to help make the transition a lot easier. And then again, you can always move um, from where you are now to where you want to be. Like for example, me, like I got into mess because I had worked at a tech firm, like a tech startup before, right? And mess is all about tech startups. So like, had I not, leveraged the fact that I knew about this EMR software to get into that tech startup and then go from tech startup to building my own tech startup, I wouldn't be here, because it's like you just came from a biology background. What are you doing in tech startups? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's, you just like, sometimes it's incremental is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
for
Yeah.
sure. That was definitely like kind of how it laid out for me too. Like you take one step at a time, and sometimes you don't even realize like that the step you're taking, it might feel good, but you might not realize like this is the right like next step. Like
Mm-hmm.
it will help me to kind of get me to where I want to be. Like sometimes you just have to take smaller steps to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a question that someone in on Instagram had asked me, and I was like,
Okay.
that is such a great question, and it was one I've been thinking about. But I want to ask you because you do so much of the work. And the question, it came from an African American man. He
Okay.
asked, how can men
Uh-huh.
advocate for Black women in the
Yeah.
industry? So I want to expand that in saying, how can anyone advocate for Black women in the industry? Because I know that like
Yeah.
also our counterparts can, our women counterparts can help that effort as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we actually had a clubhouse talk on this
Yeah.
a little while ago. Yeah. It was like the exact same topic, like how can Black men advocate for women in tech? Um, Yeah, so from that talk, a lot of takeaways were, you know, um, people can, mention us in different rooms. People who know of our work can mention us in different rooms because sometimes their input is more valued than ours in those spaces. And then other things were, well, okay, so a lot of the conversation also tended to how we can advocate for ourselves. Because I think that a lot of the times we're timid in the fact that we can, we have to take charge of our careers. So a lot of it was like, okay, as a Black woman, you might feel out of place in that workspace, but like make it a point to find your tribe, like find one or two people who are going to be in your corner and build authentic relationships with them, because then the relationships is what is actually going to get you to the next level. Like people hire and people promote people, right? So it's not just your skills or if you're doing your job. It's like who and how you can advocate and showcase yourself. So that was like advice for advocating for ourselves in that space. But for other people, again, it's mentioning our name. If we're in a meeting, right, and someone is interrupting you, skillfully be like, "Oh, I don't think Allie was finished." Right? Because just don't let those microaggressions pass, right? Like call it out, mention the fact that like, hey, Allie wasn't done, or hey, Allie had mentioned that the other day, like if someone tries to steal your idea, right? Like continuously putting us in the forefront when you know that we're doing good work is what's actually going to help us level up. Because sometimes we're forgotten, but yeah, in conjunction with that, it's like making sure people don't forget you, right? Yeah, by building relationships.
I love that. I think that's so good because that was something like in the startup that I worked for.
Mm-hmm.
We had some issues with microaggressions, and it was, I think, particularly coming from one person and someone who was in a management position who was a similar age to me. So we were very close, and we were colleagues for a while before they had been promoted. And he had come to me and said, like, what would you have done, like in situations? And I'm like, in situations when there's a lot of people and microaggressions are happening, someone has to say like that's
Yeah.
not okay. Someone has to be like, no, like that wasn't good. That's not okay. Because if no one speaks up, no one says anything, it's permitting that to happen, and it's setting that standard for the rest of the company culture or anything like that. And I definitely think using your voice, like as someone um, who, like you said, sees someone else doing good work but not getting the same types of benefits, it really goes a long way. And I think too, as Black women, I feel like there's a lot of like stereotype threat. That's something, little psych term that I took away from school. Like it's that idea that like if I lash out or stand up for myself or speak up for myself, I'll be labeled as like this mad Black woman, yeah, or angry or sassy or whatever it is. Like, and I know for me, I struggle with that because there were a lot of things that I was like it basically just internalizing because I was like experiencing all of these different microaggressions. But it's like if I say something, being the only Black woman, that's going to be their idea of me. So
Absolutely.
it's a lot. It is a lot. But yeah, Allie, I really I so appreciate that you took the time to catch up with me and just chat with me. We'll definitely have to do it again. And talk about more things. But please tell us all where they can find you, Baddies in Tech, and all of that, and all of the things that are coming up.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nicole, for this interview. Yeah, you guys can find me on Baddies in Tech. I'm going to be like more active with my face on there. Yeah, coming up next month. And then I'm actually like working on being more active on LinkedIn. So like follow me on LinkedIn because I'm actually starting to like the platform. So, and then you can also find me on Twitter. I'm like pretty active on Twitter. So Baddies In Tech, Instagram, Allie Tshay. My last name is spelled Tshey on LinkedIn. And then on Twitter, it's Allie_Tech. You can find me in those three places. And yeah, just DM me. I think my email is on LinkedIn. So if you need to email me, you can email me. But yeah, I'm always open to connecting and chatting with you. And if you need any advice on, transitioning into tech or thriving in tech, like I'm here. And yeah, what's coming up for Baddies in Tech? We have our career club that's launching on, I believe it's February 26th. Don't quote me on that, but I think and yeah, it's a networking portal. So you'll be able to connect with other baddies as well as allies and equitable employers who are looking to hire baddies. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. And yeah, you'll see, we're going to start marketing it and advertising our launch. So you'll see that. And we're having a giveaway for a pro membership. So yeah, you'll see that and definitely participate. Yeah, I'm excited. We have a lot of events. We're working on a launch event for our career club. So you'll see that announcement as well. So yeah, I'm excited. I hope to see all of you there.
Yes, that's so awesome. And I will link everything in the description of this video. So definitely go and connect with Allie on everything. I'm going to have to get with you on LinkedIn because
yeah. Are you on LinkedIn?
I am, and I hate it. And it's like, is everyone just like humble bragging about themselves on here? Like,
yeah.
To me, I don't know how to do that for myself, but I do know that it's like the engagement and like connections on there is really valuable. I've met a couple of people through LinkedIn when I do get on. So maybe if I have like some friends on there that I'm like, oh, I'll just like,
I think you need to have friends on it because that's like, that's what I'm also thinking is like, because I want to more so use it for like updates versus like anything else. Like, I think you have to have a strategy. Like I think you need to know why you're on LinkedIn and like what you're going to share without sounding like humble braggy.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think like for me, I've been like, I think this week I've been sharing, mostly resharing, just commenting on like, I think Calendly had $1 billion valuation, I think $2 billion. And then another Black owned startup became a unicorn. So that's like the first 2 unicorns. So I like shared that because I'm like a tech entrepreneur. So I like, it's like stuff like that where it's like you can kind of share other people's stuff with your network and then they get to know you as like that person. So yeah, that's kind of like my strategy around that. But I know that's like also what I thought because I was like, LinkedIn, everyone's like, I got this job and XYZ.
I helped this person out and now like they're doing great. I'm like, it's all great stuff, but it's like I can't see myself just talking about myself. Like, but yeah, for sure, definitely gonna have to find a strategy. But knowing that like some friends are on there is gonna
help. Yeah, I'll connect with you.
For sure, I'm gonna check you out. But yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to share or add? I think this has been so great.
I don't think so. Just stay safe. Wear your masks. And yeah, that's it. Just be safe. That's it.